Welcome to another edition of the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast. I'm Donald Grodoff, family coach with FamilyOCD.com and FocusedHealthyFamily.com. In the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast series, I delve into the hidden characteristics of OCD, anxiety, and anxiety disorders, the things that most people don't see, that are behind closed doors and shut within the mind about anxiety. My goal with these podcasts is to bring about awareness of Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, or OCD. Understand that I am not a doctor, therapist, or counselor, and the content, information, resources, and ideas that are talked about and brought up here in these podcasts are things that I have used, discovered, or have been recommended to me, and I always recommend to seek additional professional help in finding solutions for yourself. Thank you for listening and enjoy the podcast. This podcast was recorded December 26, 2018. This is podcast 24, Resolutions and OCD. So in this recording, or this podcast, what I wanted to talk a little bit about is New Year's resolutions. We're getting to the start of 2019. In just a week here, we're going to be celebrating the new year. And I know a lot of people like to come up with New Year's resolutions, goals for the year, things like that. And want to kind of like start things out new and fresh, which I think is a great idea. A lot of people want to go, they want to look at weight loss or health changes. All of those things are great. The only thing that I, get concerned about in resolutions is that we set ourselves in standards that are way too high that we'll never reach and that it frustrates us. So I've never been great myself at being able to set goals as such or resolutions as such. And so what I was hoping to do in this is just kind of talk about what ways might work better. And when you're talking about anxiety and OCD and that being a part of your life, now, understand, as those that have listened to the podcast before know that I don't have OCD. It's what got me into this was my daughter, and I know my daughter set some things for herself to shoot towards, but I don't think she does really well at setting goals either. And like I said, what I always get concerned about with resolutions or goals or these desires that we either set them too high or too broad or too something where it's hard to meet those. They're not defined well enough, and so it becomes a process for us to be able to beat ourselves up about. So what my thoughts are in this is to put down, what I like to do is I write out my desires for 2018, 2019. I did this for 2018. And so I was keeping in mind, and I think here's the important part about goals, resolutions, thoughts like that, is that you bring them in present mind all the time. One of the things that I believe in. I did it for last year, and it was semi-successful. Again, I'm not perfect at this. I'm not setting this up as I know what I'm doing, follow what I do, and that's going to be your best New Year's resolution. But what I have learned is that if I can keep myself in top of mind with something, if I can do a vision board, or if I can do, with me, I did just a vision sheet. I printed out, I got some pictures that fit some of the goals that I had, and then I tried to keep it in front of me, and I tried to look at it every day. I wasn't very good at that this year, and I'm hoping that in this coming year that I can do more of that. Um, because I do believe that if you can envision it and envision it on a regular basis, picturing where you want to be, it can be much more powerful than just setting them down on paper or setting them on in your computer or something like that. So I think it's important to be able to every day concentrate on where you want to be and let go of the things that pull you back to looking backwards. Um, so one of the things that, and I in the work I do, I always talk to people about if you're thinking positively or trying to do affirmations, one of the things you want to be able to do is to listen for the resistance that comes up when you're trying to think positive. Well, I believe the same things fall in line when it comes to goals or resolutions. That, maybe maybe you're setting a weight loss goal. Maybe you're setting a resolution that says this year I'm going to lose 50 pounds or 100 pounds, whatever it might be. And so you get on the scale and you're checking yourself and the messages come out. You know, the, ah, look, see, you're not doing it, any of the negative messages. And those are the things that we want to work on clearing. Find, um, I do it in the form of what I use is the tapping, EFT, the tapping process, the emotional freedom techniques tapping to help release those old negative messages. But, if for some reason EFT isn't what's in your mind to do to be able to release that, what I would suggest to you is to listen to the resistance. Don't push them away, but listen to them and kind of work through questioning what do those messages really have to say? What is the purpose of that message coming out for me right now? And is it useful for me? Is it still holding itself true for what I'm doing, for the path that I'm going down? Is that working for me? And then slowly digging through as to, what does it come up for? Where did it come from? What what developed that particular belief in me? And then how can I change it? So, it's I think one of the important parts of setting goals or resolutions is to not just look at the positive, but look at what's coming up that's pulling you back, that's holding you back, and start kind of questioning it. Now, I don't like the term why, though. I don't like to question why this is happening or why I'm doing this or why this or why that. I think the why has a negative guilt kind of ridden to it because it's questioning something you did maybe in the past, something that happened in the past, and um, putting on to it the guilt of, well, why did you do that? Well, at the time you did it, it felt right, did right, or you did it, and you can't change it. So why look back at it? So I don't like the word why. I like to think about what is the purpose of this? What does it play in my life for right now? Instead of questioning why. Because the why really isn't going to get a good answer, I don't believe. So I think that's really important in looking at resolutions and goals is to start really listening to yourself about whatever that is. Be very cognizant of what is happening when you think of this goal and to be able to find ways to be able to change that. Not push it off, but to redefine it, to change it, to put it into a brighter light so you can see it and release it. Because more than likely, whatever it is that's holding you back is not necessarily true and not necessarily fitting for you at this time. It may have been something that was set years and years ago. Um, and so the next thing is taking and setting goals is to look at, okay, look ahead to where do you want to be? What is the long range goal? Maybe it's a monetary goal, which I have a hard time with setting. I want to make $100,000 this year or something like that until I get past the negatives and the resistance around that. Um, but maybe it is setting a dollar goal that you have, and then saying, okay, I want that 6 months down the road. How does that divide out over those months? So I start at the end and I reverse myself to see what it's going to take to get me to there, to where I'm at now. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's one way to be able to look at that. So and then when it comes to OCD, see, and that's where I think the anxiety can really play the resistance. OCD can really play on that with resistance, negative messages that'll hound you over, you'll make resolutions and OCD's going to knock it all to pieces. So if one of the things I think when it comes to OCD, I think one of the resolutions could be for you, if you're suffering with OCD, is to really explore, if you haven't done it already, ERP therapy, exposure response prevention therapy. It is what I feel, and I think most of the International Foundation for OCD believes and holds true, and as well as the doctors that I've talked to here in the local area that are dealing with OCD. ERP is one of the best therapies for um, for OCD. And so if OCD is an issue for you and it's gotten stronger, I would recommend highly getting into a place of setting this as a resolution. And almost like it could be your resolution for the year, because reason being, and if you have not heard the podcast on ERP, you want to go back to it and really understand the whole concept of it. But I'll understand that it's very methodical in how it works, and it does take some grit on your part, or some willpower, whatever you want to call it, because it is a hard process to do. It is a very hard process. But what the problem is that without it, OCD becomes a very complex and hard process that gets harder and harder and harder. Each year, each moment, it can get tougher and it can start to take over your life. Now, ERP takes time and effort, but the results give you back your life, give you back the time, get you to a place of managing the OCD so it isn't controlling your life. So I would recommend, committing to that as part of your resolution to do ERP, uh, and to find someone that can help you through it. And simple plug for myself, but that's one of the things that my wife and I both work with people and helping them get through. But if not myself, find a good therapist that knows and understands OCD. When you talk to a therapist about it, ask them how, have they worked with OCD patients? Have they done or do they know how to do ERP therapy and work through that? Make sure they really understand what OCD is about. Not just a simple definition, but what it's like. That it takes over the life, that it affects everyone in the family, that it's a family process too. ERP, I believe, it's really helpful to have a community around you, a family, a community around you that can help you, that can support you. So find if that's your resolution, if that can be your resolution for the year, then it needs to take on as a task that you do. And part of the task is finding someone to help you through that task. So, and I thought as the final part of this, I would read. I found on the web, and you can find it too. This comes from it actually comes from peaceofmind.com, but it is an article by another website called themighty.com, and it's New Year's resolutions from people with OCD. And I thought I'd share some of them. I'm not going to share. They have like 15 of them here. I'm not going to share all of them, but I'm going to share some big points of it that I think are really good ones to think about for resolutions for yourself in dealing with OCD. So I'm going to go through these again. This comes from an article in themighty.com, themighty.com, and that's MIGHTY, the THEMIGHTY.com. But and what I did to find it was just I did OCD and resolutions, and that's what came up. So let me share some of these with you. I'm not going to share every one of them, but I'm going to share a couple of them. One of them says, my resolution is to keep my eye on the prize, a life free of fear and mandates. And I will share with you that my daughter kind of gave me this as what helped her is she kept, if I want to use the words they use here, she kept her eye on the goal for her. Her goal was to be able to touch and pet and take care of her dog again, which she couldn't do. And she said that helped her to have that goal in mind, that end point, I think is the way she put it, is, I want to be able to do this, or I want this. So, keeping your eye on that prize, and I think that's part of that resolution and that vision board is being able to say, what is your goal of getting out of OC? What would you like to be able to do? Get my life back, or whatever. So that I think to me is very important. Another one talks about their biggest goal is to try and not allow rituals to paralyze them. And that to me is, and again, thinking about what does paralyze you, and maybe that's what you put on the vision board, because that's part of ERP is to be exposed to it. Another one says, not let my OCD hold me back from enjoying, and in this particular case, they talked about an overseas holiday, but really about enjoying life. Another one says, my resolution is to keep taking risk and doing exposures, but also be more forgiving of myself when I have slips and ritualize. And I think there's an important thing about forgiving yourself. Maybe it's a resolution of forgiving yourself this year for the mishaps. Maybe you're doing ERP, and I know, to me, with my daughter and with some of the clients, it's like, one or two steps up and one or two steps back here and there, and not beat yourself up for it. Another one says less stigma and more awareness. Getting rid of the stigma around it, getting rid of believing it and knowing differently about yourself. Another one says, I want to continue speaking out about OCD and educate people about what OCD really is and what it is not. Now, this particular one is from an IOCDF spokesperson. The in OCD Foundation spokesperson came up with that one. But I think that's not just for somebody that's in an organization. It's not just for somebody that's part of some kind of support group. That's in in each person who has OCD or those that are around them, is to go out and talk about it. Let people know. Educate people about that. And maybe that's something you could put in as part of your resolution, is to help educate the people out there who know nothing about OCD. Let them know what it's like for you. Another one states in here, independence, to get back in charge of my everyday task. Independence is one that, OCD can take over your life. Um, and then another one says, not to let my violent thoughts dictate my life anymore. Not to let OCD take over your life. So I think setting some goals to go after, I think sometimes keeping it a little more simple. We set a gazillion goals doesn't do any good because we can't possibly do that. Really be real to what works for you, what happens and what you can fit in your life. Because the one thing you don't want to do is set it so high and so big that you can never reach it. Doesn't help any. That just gets you into more anxiety. Drives your OCD to say, see, I told you so. And then live that message over and over again. So I hope this has helped you in some way to be able to possibly set some goals, set some desires for the new year coming up, whether it be 2019, which is the one coming up for me as I do this recording, or whatever year you're listening to and it's coming up. I hope this has helped you to be able to set that and help you to do better in the year. So take care. Whatever year you're listening to this in, Happy New Year to you. And I wish you the best for this new year, or for the new year that's going to start today for you, whatever it is, whether it's January 1st or July 1st, and it's a new year, a new beginning for you. I hope it starts well for you. Take care and keep tapping. That concludes this podcast. Please leave me a comment or question below. That gives me good direction where to go on future podcasts. I would love to hear your invisible wheelchair stories if you're willing to share it. If you would, go to invisiblewheelchair.com and click on Tell Your Story. I want to remind you that OCD, Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, is treatable, and I can help you get past OCD. So if you have heard this podcast and others, and you feel like you need further assistance and would like to spend some time with me working through any issues you have, then feel free to book a session at focusedhealthyfamily.com or familyocd.com, or you can call me at 704-562-1630. I also offer $85 off initial discovery session if you mention that you heard it on this podcast. Finally, don't forget that there is a tapping recording that coincides with this podcast you may want to take advantage of. I hope you have enjoyed this podcast and will join me for the next one. Remember to keep tapping, talking, and transcending your life to new heights. Thank you, and have a great day.